On a chilly January night in 1955 in the small town of Hawkins, Texas, a scene unfolded that would be talked about for decades to come. It started with a simple autograph request that spiraled into an encounter that would change the life of a shy high school girl forever. Little did anyone know, this night would mark the beginning of a legendary relationship between a young Elvis Presley and the town of Hawkins. It all began when Elvis, fresh off a successful show in nearby Hawkins, decided to stop by Tom Perriman's radio station, KSIJ, to say thanks and promote his next gig in Tyler. The Perriman household, especially Billy, Tom's wife, treated Elvis like family. They fed him, washed his only stage shirt, and offered him a place to stay when the local motel was full. This kindness would become a cornerstone of Elvis's life during his early days on the road. After his radio appearance, Elvis headed to the Mayfair building in Tyler for another performance. The town was buzzing with excitement, especially the younger crowd. Many saw this as an opportunity to escape the mundane routines of school and small-town life. Among them was Lois Adair, who was dragged to the show by her friend Betty Bailey. Lois wasn't interested in the music or the celebrity, she just wanted to avoid being the only girl without a date. As Elvis took the stage, Lois was captivated. She couldn't take her eyes off him. After the show, fueled by determination and a bit of bravery, she managed to get his autograph. This simple moment sparked something in Lois. When Elvis returned to Tyler the following year, she found the courage to approach him again, this time at his piano after a performance. That night, something magical happened. Lois wasn't just mesmerized by his music, she felt a connection that went beyond the surface. Elvis, sensing her interest, offered her a ride home. Her mother was skeptical, sensing something more than just friendship, but Lois declined, unsure of how to explain her feelings. A year later, after Elvis became a national sensation, Lois finally mustered the courage to visit him at a show in Dallas. She was determined to get that autograph and prove to herself that her feelings for him were real. However, the star she once idolized was now shrouded in fame and surrounded by fans. Security was tight, and Lois had to sneak past a guard to reach him. That brief moment with Elvis, though fleeting, left an indelible mark on Lois. She never saw him again, but the encounter gave her a story to share, one that would shape her life and her future. As she looked back, she realized that her journey with Elvis Presley had taught her more about courage, desire, and the power of a single moment than she could have ever imagined. This story is more than just a tale of a young fan and a rock and roll star. It's about the unexpected connections we make, the courage it takes to pursue our desires, and the lasting impact of a brief encounter. In the world of music and fandom, sometimes it's the smallest moments that leave the biggest imprints on our lives. In January 1955, Elvis Presley, along with his bandmates Scotty Moore and Bill Black, embarked on a tour across East Texas. It was a cold winter, but the excitement of their music warmed the hearts of many. Their journey started in Tyler and took them through rural roads and small towns, with stops at cafes and performance halls. As they left Tyler, the landscape transformed into a green oasis, thanks to the white pines lining Highway 155. Gilmer, their next destination, was just ahead. The trio arrived at the Gilmer Rural Electric Co-op building, where they were greeted like stars. It was January 26th, and the band had been touring for 3 days. Elvis, Scotty, and Bill walked into the White Swan Café, a local eatery. Elvis, with his long sideburns and a bright pink and red checkered jacket, drew immediate attention. The cafe was filled with curious locals who watched the trio with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. After all, these were not your average musicians from back home. Elvis's style, influenced by African American rhythm and blues, was a stark contrast to the more conservative fashion of the time. His clothes came from Lansky's in Memphis, a place where he bought everything from suits to records. The cafe's waitress, wary but polite, took their order. The band ate their meal slowly, aware of the curious glances. They ordered chili, pie, and plenty of iced tea. As they ate, the locals watched, hoping to catch a glimpse of the disturbing behavior rumored to come with rock and roll musicians, but nothing out of the ordinary happened. After finishing their meal, the band left without incident, much to the relief of the Gilmer residents. Their next stop was the performance hall connected to the Gilmer Rural Electric Cooperative Building. This hall, with its real stage and capacity for about 150 people, was a significant venue for a town of just over 4,000. The atmosphere was electric as teenagers from nearby Hawkins arrived early to secure good seats. These teenagers had seen Elvis perform in Hawkins a day earlier and were eager to see him again. The show began with Jim Eade and Maxine Brown, a well-known duo, warming up the crowd. Their harmonious voices set the tone, but the real excitement was reserved for Elvis. When the Browns finished, Elvis and the Blue Moon Boys took the stage. Bill Black tuned his bass and started with some light-hearted banter to ease the audience into the performance. As the music started, the crowd's energy surged. Elvis, known for his nervous energy before performances, was particularly jittery. Bill helped calm him down, and soon the stage was alive. Elvis's performance of That's All Right, Mama was electric. His voice, strained from laryngitis, cracked several times, but the girls in the audience were entranced, their screams drowning out the music. It was a wild, unforgettable show. After the performance, Elvis delegated the task of selling autographs to Johnny Stokes, one of their loyal fans from Hawkins. Johnny worked hard selling signed photos and collecting a small commission. He would have done it for free, but he never told Elvis this, perhaps hoping to impress his idol further. The next day, January 27th, the band headed to Longview for a performance at the Rio Palm Isle Club. This club had a reputation for launching careers, and the owner, Glen Keeling, booked them as a favor to a local DJ, Tom Perriman. However, the turnout was disappointing. Only about 160 people showed up, far fewer than the 1,800-seat capacity. The Hawkins kids, who had seen Elvis perform just days before, did not make it this time. The club was too fancy and too far for most of them. Despite the low attendance, Elvis took the time to chat with the audience after the show. He shared a candid moment, admitting that if things didn't improve soon, he might have to go back to driving a truck. As they prepared to leave, Elvis caught a glimpse of Glen Keeling's new Ford Crown Victoria, painted in a rare tropical rose color. He expressed his admiration for the car, and it was a small detail that Keeling remembered. Months later, when Elvis returned, he was driving a shiny pink Cadillac. Their final stop on the tour was Joinerville, a small town near Henderson. The band checked out of the Raysmore Motel in Gladewater, a modest place that offered basic amenities. The motel owners, eager to get rid of them, had warned the band to behave or face the consequences. Elvis, despite his rough ways, was a draw, and the motel owners tolerated his presence. Joinerville had a rich history, having been part of the largest oil field in the world during the 1930s. By the 1950s, however, the town was in a decline. Gaston High School, which served both Joinerville and nearby New London, was a symbol of the town's resilience. As the band prepared to leave Joinerville, they reflected on their tour. It had been a challenging but exhilarating experience. Each stop brought new challenges and opportunities, but the music remained the heart of their journey. With the tour coming to an end, they were eager to return home, but the memories of East Texas would stay with them forever. Elvis Presley and his band's East Texas tour in January 1955 was a series of highs and lows. From the warm welcome in Gilmer to the lukewarm reception in Longview and the modest final show in Joinerville, each stop added to their story. The band's raw energy and unique sound captivated audiences, even if not everyone understood or appreciated it at first. As they packed up their gear and headed home, they carried with them the echoes of small-town Texas and the seeds of a musical legacy that would change the world. In the winter of 1955, two events in small Texas towns show how music can surprise and delight even the most unprepared communities. In Joinerville, a town with just 1,500 people, the high school band director, Wallace Reed, and some parents came up with a clever plan. They wanted to raise money, and they heard that a young singer named Elvis Presley had recently impressed everyone at a nearby town called Hawkins. Reed was not a fan of Elvis's music, preferring classical composers like Gershwin. But after speaking with Superintendent Duran, he agreed to let Elvis perform at their school if 60% of the profits went to Presley. When Elvis arrived in Joinerville, he was intrigued by the quaint town. With only 6 businesses to explore, the town felt like a small slice of home. The high school auditorium where he was set to perform was modest but filled with excited students. Reed shared the good news with Elvis. 600 tickets had been sold, a huge crowd for such a small place. This meant a good payday for Elvis, even after splitting the profits and covering his own costs. On the night of the performance, Elvis transformed from a quiet, well-mannered young man into a whirlwind of energy on stage. The students screamed and jumped with excitement. Reed watched nervously, thinking how he wished he could manage such a talent. But Superintendent Duran just smiled, seeing the money in his eyes. After the show, students mobbed Elvis for autographs and photos. Reed realized this was no ordinary talent. Elvis had a future, even if Reed couldn't see it then. Fast forward a short time to February 1955, and another town, Alpine, faced a similar problem. The Future Farmers of America benefit was in trouble. The main act, Elvis, was nowhere to be found. John Nelson, the DJ, and his boss, George Hendrick, scrambled to fix the situation. As the clock ticked past 8 p.m., the crowd grew restless. Nelson and Hendrick left to find Elvis, driving through the cold winter night, worried sick. Meanwhile, back in Joinerville, Elvis's performance had been a huge success. Reed couldn't help but think about how different Elvis was from the classical music he usually favored. Yet he couldn't deny the excitement and energy Elvis brought to the students. Little did Reed know Elvis's career was just beginning, and he would soon become a national sensation. Back in Alpine, Nelson and Hendrick finally found Elvis at a different high school where he had mistakenly been booked. They raced to the original venue, hoping to salvage the evening. When they arrived, the crowd was still waiting. Elvis jumped on stage and the show went on, though a bit late. The music filled the auditorium, and even though it was chaotic, the students were thrilled to see their idol. These events in small Texas towns illustrate a key point. Sometimes unexpected things can bring joy and excitement to communities. Elvis's raw talent and charisma captivated audiences, showing that greatness can emerge from the most unlikely places. For Wallace Reed and George Hendrick, these experiences were eye-opening. They saw firsthand the power of music to unite people and create unforgettable moments. As Elvis's fame grew, it became clear that his impact went far beyond small towns in Texas. Within a year, he was a national star, appearing on television and captivating millions. Even years later, when Reed ran into Elvis in Houston, Elvis still remembered Reed, showing how deeply these early encounters had affected him. In another part of Texas, the story of the canceled performance in Alpine highlights the challenges behind the scenes. Despite the last-minute mix-up, the community's hope and enthusiasm were palpable. It showed that even when things don't go as planned, the spirit of music and community can still shine through. These stories remind us that sometimes, the most unexpected moments can lead to incredible outcomes. Whether it's a small-town band director giving a chance to a young singer or a DJ racing through the countryside to save a show, the love of music can bridge gaps and create magic. In the end, it's not just about the music, it's about the connections we make and the memories we create.